Hello everyone and welcome to week 10, drafting stage, moving into draft 1 of argumentation. Posting a video this week to cover a couple of minor and major points. One on the minor points, still got some students where things haven't been submitted, haven't kept up with the class. I've attempted to contact by email and tried to make some arrangements with some individuals about trying to get things in. This is not how we typically do things in this format of an async class. I've tried to take things into consideration, but for some of the students who simply have not had contact and are not, expecting to go through the course and not submit hardly anything for the term. And I'm not speaking to those of you who I've been working with over the last couple of weeks. It is past time for some students. If you're still one of those ones who has not reached out and made any contact and you haven't submitted work, and I don't know what it is you're expecting to have happen by the end of the term, there's nothing I can do besides post a failed grade. So that aside, the rest of the students who have been submitting and working hard throughout the term and keep in contact with me, several of you, and working on some of these things and revisions. And let's try from now to the end of the term, keep things up to date so that we can end the term with a completed project here on the argumentation piece. This is week 10 drafting. We're going to have 2 more drafting stages with this before finalization. I'm going to talk to you guys real quick about some of these things, just a quick reminder of some of the things that went into the opening stages of this and what you were responsible for in this piece. I have, relatively speaking, I have 3/4 of the class now seem to be pretty close to up to date and doing the work and things like that. And then I got a couple of you still scrambling to get yourselves caught up. That's fine. We're working on those things. Please bear with me too. It's very difficult to keep pace with 30 different schedules. I've tried to make accommodations this semester because of so many issues you've had, and that's it's difficult keeping pace with all these different people in different places and different assignment schedules. It's not typically how this is done. It's usually an async course where the things are posted and you follow through on those and then use the tutoring services for more of the feedback, and then the final grading things are done and posted here. It's been slightly different here, obviously, and I've been trying to give you as much feedback as I possibly can. Finalization of, I got a couple more to go on the memoir final drafts, and a few more on the rhetorical analysis, but the majority of those are ready to go up. I will be posting up a rewrite Dropbox for memoir. It is the one essay that you have the opportunity to rewrite. I do recommend that if you are going to do it, take it through a rewrite. Also go through, after you've corrected any revisions that I mark on there, take it through tutoring one more time if you haven't already, so you can get both the extra credit for the tutoring session as well as one more proofread before you finalize. Remember, every edit and revision adds to your comprehension of your own patterns of error so that you recognize them more readily and then are able to make corrections. Now, with the portion that we're on here now, I want to take us back through the course schedule momentarily, pop into the assignments, and look at some of the assignments that built into this argumentation piece walk us up to the end of the semester here right now. I want to come back down to remind students on these weeks in the 8th and 9th week, the recommended, the assigned videos that are in your content folder above, these ones on week 8 and the ones on week 9, those are under the content file here. They're over on the left-hand side. I mean, this is, I think, the 3rd time that I've touched base on these throughout the term for these in the video post. This one here is just the introduction to it, and then MLA citations with faculty librarian Ann Woloski. You have these 2 different introductory ones that take you through all these different things. I still had 2 students email me about where they're supposed to be doing their research and getting their articles from, how to access these things. I mean, these were assigned in the reading for these. It's pretty inexcusable that that's something that you missed on there, that's something that's been posted for 7-8 weeks. That's been up in that course schedule for the term, that these were up and coming, and these have been accessed by all but 9 students in all of my classes, the 3 async onlines and 1 face-to-face. They've been accessed by all but 9 students, so it seemed like it was not a hard thing to follow or to find or to view or to use. And particularly those of you who have submitted your preliminary points of support and work cited page for your initial 10 sources. Remember, you're not waiting for feedback from that to go on to outline. That is something, unless there was something drastically wrong or of concern with your summary and working thesis, you are supposed to move right on into the outline and then subsequent drafting stage. With outline, I should be able to get most students some feedback prior to actually drafting, but there may be 1 or 2 if that comes up again. Not an issue there. I'll leave the Dropbox still accessible, and just put a reminder note in there when you submit. Just state in there, in your submission, just make a statement there that clarifies to me, remember we spoke about the submission on here, and I'll just make sure that I adjust it so I'm not taking it as late credit. So in any event, make sure you watch these if you haven't, and you're submitting things and your MLA format is completely off, including the citations and things that you're doing on Works Cited. So far in preliminary reports and preliminary points of support and Works Cited pages, on these ones so far, I have not, I'm in student view right now, by the way, so it says not submitted. This is just one of my working accounts. So it looks like what your page is. So under assignments, if we're going through what we've done so far, everyone, the feedback on these ones here, everyone though that I got a submission from, those have been posted for some time now, so you were able to go through those. If there's nothing drastically of concern there, and even with those, I think only for a couple of you guys I had comments that suggested, we'd say moderate changes to what you were doing. Nothing significant that I can recall from any of the students in the async onlines. So most students should be moving on into outline stage. On the preliminary points of support and Works Cited, the only way that something would be, off here was if there was already something, typically with the thesis. If you guys had a clearly argumentative thesis and that didn't have to be changed, that was the main thing to get right there. Making sure that your topic that you picked was one that was relevant, one that was, a point that could clearly be argued from at least 2 discernible points, so that if you're making a statement, there's at least 1 clear point of opposition directly towards your main thesis. And then that should follow that the points you try to make in terms of supporting your thesis, if there's already a clear argument against it, it's also going to address most of your primary points of support, at least to some degree. I know a couple of you said that you were doing a couple of the different topics, and you said some of your opposition just kind of got repetitive and you don't find it convincing. That's the repetitive thing. There is some of that with some of your topics, particularly the 3 of you that are on the same exact topic, different classes, but you're going to find some repetition in some of those. And if you don't find the opposition convincing, well, it might be why you picked the stance you did originally. But just make sure, guys, that you acknowledge that opposition. Really take it in. Try and see it from that side, so that the only way you really strengthen your argument and your own understanding of a topic is to really listen to what the other side has to say. And if you find it convincing, then maybe pursue that further and get into what the actual arguments are, rather than straw manning them, which is what the couple of suggestions that I had to make for you guys were about. Some of those where you're straw manning some of your opposition. When you really get into it, most of the oppositional points that have stood the test of time now. They are there for a reason. And I'm not talking about all of your pathos arguments. Some of those more emotional arguments, those I understand, those are hard to take as convincing because they're often founded on principles that people can't agree on, like when they have personal ideologies or group ideologies, and those inform their decision making on things. I get it with that, but there's, those still are points you have to address. But so you guys had your summary working thesis. I had the majority of students write the full summary, give me a good working thesis where you covered all the points on the template. Just remember the main thing was to have completed this template. Mine's in black background. Yours wouldn't look like this unless you had your set to that. So filling out these categories was very important for the starting point here. And then back into this assignment schedule, that's the main thing you should have been watching for feedback on. And now preliminary points of support and works cited. Just remember on those works cited pages need to be MLA formatted. This was that document here. And making sure you are essentially giving 3 topic sentences for those points of support. And then your works cited page, MLA formatted. Make sure that these are correctly done, folks. The double spacing, the Times New Roman, hanging indents every line after the first. So many of these submissions where the format is bad, you're just showing your hand that you didn't even read any of the textbook stuff, let alone just look at the formatting in OWL Purdue. You submitted things to me that look nothing like an MLA formatted works cited page. Make sure you're at least following those basics, folks. It's bad. I know sometimes students don't read all the sections in the textbook because these things from other disciplines or experience in high school, whatever it is, or you've seen them before. But this still has to be something, that you know the manual's there and you know whether or not you know how to do these things. If you don't, make sure you're reviewing them. The works cited page in the MLA format, that's in your textbook as well as on a free page here on OWL Purdue. You can follow those links. There's one on your homepage that's been there since the beginning of the term under instructional links that shows you basic MLA formatting. It takes you right to an OWL Purdue free open source that you can go over. So make sure those were completed correctly, and if you did have that as an issue on that one, make sure you go back and revise that so it's not on your actual draft upcoming. The outline portion that I just got from many students, most of you actually, was pretty impressed at the turnout now with these. Make sure, guys, on these that you're writing in your general to specific intro paragraph. And remember, that's a specific layout. Look at the examples. Remind yourself about the first time through in the memoir and the rhetorical analysis. You're making sure that you understand that these have to be a general category that your argument's in, and then an example of some other category. If you're doing climate change or something like that for yours, you might be talking about natural disaster things, and then here you give an example of some other type of natural disaster that's not related to climate change itself, earthquake or something along those lines. And then here bring your topic in and give everything of relevance along with your thesis. Now down here, so far, I've got 6 submissions so far, one class. I got a few in each class, but the thing students tend to go off track on the most with these, it's not usually the points of support, it's usually the opposition. So just remember your topic sentence, your supporting details down here, include quotes. Remember to make sure to read these directions up here and remove all my sample sentences down below. But make sure you're putting in quotes for both as points of support. If you're unfamiliar with using quote format, make sure you look at that in the part of your textbook that covered it. But intro quote, give quote, explain, defend quote. You should have at least 3 sentences in that structure. Make a claim as a major supporting detail that's introing a quote, and then give the quote, usually transitioning into it with something like, for instance, the author so-and-so said, and give the quote. And then after you give the in-text citation, you explain and or defend the quote to explain back to the reader what that quote proves about the claim that you just made. That is one thing to remember with those quotes. The main thing is here in this portion with the opposition. Do the same for your opposition. Give a clear Iron Man point of opposition against yours, not straw man, right? And then after you've given that and given a quote on there, make sure that you refute or concede. Give a point of concession or refutation. You have to acknowledge the opposition. Can you refute it entirely, or do you have to concede and say, okay, I understand this is a valid point, but here's some better information on it, right, or better stance. That's the basics for that one, guys. Make sure that those are, I don't need that to say. Make sure that those are completed, and then this week you guys are working on your draft. I'll be looking at the outlines over the next couple of days, but move into drafting on this. Draft 1 will be the first